This is not my wheel, but fixing it somehow has become my problem. So by extension, it's your problem too. It's summertime, so 'tis the season, I suppose. This thing is losing air at the spokes. If my college course in advanced theoretical tire leaks is to be believed, I think we're looking at either a broken or dislodged tire band. There's only one way to find out, and that's to get inside. Which is challenge number 1, should you choose to accept it. I do not have the right tools to be doing this sort of thing. Compound that with the fact that, first, I'm in a hurry, and second, I don't feel like doing this thing. We've got ourselves the perfect storm brewing that inevitably leads me to owing someone a new tire. Who am I kidding? I love fixing stuff. First, I want to get that valve stem out. I'm going to have to break this bead to get the tire off the rim, and I think it'll be a lot easier if the air could just come out if it wants to. Now, I was going to make a tool, a valve tool, but I did some digging around and I've got one of those security bit sets, and this thing looks like it might just do the trick. Of course, by the trick, I mean do irreparable damage to the valve stem. Hold the boat. In manhandling this thing, I've discovered what appears to be severe tire damage. Well, that stinks. I'm not quite sure what that means for our endeavor today. Let's keep going. No idea if this is going to work, but I've got the whole thing set up in my vise. It's maybe a tad high, but this thing is hard to juggle just by myself. Try to drop that just a little bit. There it is. Let's try to do the same thing on the other side. Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. I didn't expect that. And alas, we've come to our moral dilemma. The tire band is shot. See if I can dig it out of there. The tire band is what keeps a tubeless tire from leaking through the spokes, through the rim. Deep down inside, I was hoping this had maybe just come dislodged. To state the obvious, the right thing to do here would be to change the tire band and get a new tire. But I'm going to have to check with the project manager first. Now, this thing's already been patched at least a couple of times by ye old tire shoppy by the looks of it. These fixes have to be, 15 years old at least, or there's some renegade still out there with a stash of hot patches. The usual reason for fixes like these is that the tire still has some life in it. It hasn't worn out, but has taken some non-repairable damage. An inner tube, of course, is cheaper than buying a new tire. Downside is inner tubes aren't great on trials bikes. I think you lose some traction. I run my tires at about 5 or 6 psi. This is a total guess, but a tubed tire probably needs to be in the 10 to 15 psi range to keep from damaging it. While we await further instructions, allow me to take this opportunity to make some corrections to my previous wrenching video. Most importantly, I said that when cleaning a piston in situ, you shouldn't use abrasives, and I was using Scotch-Brite. It's been since brought to my attention that Scotch-Brite isn't, well, maybe the brightest idea. Personally, I've never run into problems with it, with the gray stuff. I mean, I know they're abrasive, but I always thought the abrasive was sort of firmly bonded, unless you buy the cheap stuff. But I'm no Scotch-Brite expert. Although I did do a lot to clean everything up after I was done, commenters suggested using stuff like oven cleaner and a brush would have been better. Sounds smart to me. So mea culpa, maybe don't use Scotch-Brite. Second, a few attentive viewers took issue with seeing water coming out of my coolant system. It's not a great idea to use just water, but in my case it was an emergency. I kept filling the radiator with my water bottle just to get me home without doing irreparable damage to the engine. Speaking of engine, I wish I would have never said engine oil. You're right, it's gear or transmission oil. The oil I drained is for the transmission and the clutch. But look, whatever, it's oil and it's inside the engine, so it's engine oil, alright? The oil you saw me drain does not lubricate the piston in the cylinder. I use a 2-stroke gas and oil mix for that, almost 100 to 1. I'm not that hung up about it, but it's less than 80, but more than 100. I always try to use the good stuff though, fully synthetic. Now I didn't mean to leave anybody hanging at the end of that last video. The bike didn't really explode. It took a kick or two, started up fine. I've probably got I don't know, 5, 6, 7 hours tops on it since that video, and it hasn't missed a beat. Ton of power, and most importantly, it's not shooting water everywhere. Fans coming on and off as it should. It's just plain old running right. One last clarification, and we won't have to stare at these spokes and disc brake anymore. Water can get into the transmission oil if the water pump seal is bad. I didn't mean to imply water was getting into the transmission via the head gasket. I don't even know if that's possible. Maybe it is. But it's not what I meant when I was talking about milky oil. To wrap this up, I want to reiterate that this is a technical channel. You folks shouldn't take everything so literally. So in the end, the decision was to patch it. I didn't show that to you because we had people. I'm also not going to show you wrestling with this thing with the wrong tools. Screwdrivers and pry bars are a really good way to wreck your rim, tear up your tire, and probably puncture the inner tube you may have just installed. Everything was a bear to get together, and now I just want to see if I can bead this tire back onto the rim. So far so good. I'm going to set this to, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 10. 9 should be somewhere between 8 and 10. And no bubbles. I'm going to put this on the bike and just set it by eye. I don't want the tire to ride too high or too low. Maybe I will just drop it back down to 6 psi. The rider isn't as heavy as I am. Shouldn't compromise any traction. Anyway, this video didn't turn out exactly how I thought it was going to, but at least I got the chance to clarify some of the issues from the last one. As always, thanks for watching.